HR director. There's normally a position where you say, oh God, please, no, not HR again. And this is one of the days where I do podcasts, and I do this podcast in English and German, and often the content can be a bit similar, just with different examples, different references. But this time it is completely different, because HR between the German-speaking area, and especially Germany, and the rest of the world is completely different. Maybe you heard that HR does not have the greatest reputation. I even heard in the UK that someone said, not my words by the way, but I apologize in advance for that person. This person said the Department of Human Remains, which of course is not what it is. Also, that is highly disrespectful. But where does that come from? Why does HR have such a bad reputation in many countries, while in the German-speaking area it is one of the most trusted departments when it is set up the right way? HR has to change, especially in the English-speaking world, because most HR is nothing else than administration of contracts. People sign up, people leave, people need to get fired, people need a reference. That's what they do, basically day in, day out. And then they do a bit of training on the side, normally booking by the cheapest offer, which of course doesn't lead to any kind of sustainable or even acceptable result. That has nothing to do with proper HR work. So what is proper HR work? And I'll just give you an insight, a part of what an HR director has to do, and of course what the HR department has to do. So of course there's a very intense cooperation between the leadership team and of course the board of directors. And then of course you have to plan everything that comes to HR, which is staff planning, personal planning, which means you have recruiting, you have to make plans, who to hire, when to hire, you have recruiting events and assessment centers. And by the way, assessment centers, and that's also a main difference between the German-speaking area and the English-speaking areas I've been to. I could, of course, now say the Germans are just more efficient, but that's not the main issue here. I simply see that most assessment centers in the English-speaking world have way too many rounds for what is the result in the end. And I'll just give you an example. Canary Wharf, there's a major real estate company looking for a head of and then a special consultancy unit. I'm not going to give you the specific title because otherwise you're going to Google it and find it immediately because they are the only ones using that title. A head of, global head of, and the consultancy in that area is highly profitable and high in demand at the moment. And they were looking for someone, and there were 8 rounds of assessment center. Okay, so aspect number 1. When you want to do 8 rounds of assessment center, people will ask to get paid for that. No one takes 8 days off their calendar just to sit down with you, going through one and the next and the next and the next round. And especially not when at the end you say, you think about paying that person £85,000 a year. That is, politely said, a bloody joke. Sorry for these strong words, but when you have an 8-round assessment center, there must be a massive 6-digit number at the end of the game. Otherwise, and that of course is what happened at that company, they said, oh, we didn't have applicants for about 6 months and the position was still open. Yes, it's not the market. It's not people who ask for too much. No, sometimes the problem is external. Sometimes the problem is someone else. Sometimes the problem is you. And in these cases, the problem is you. So the assessment center, please be wise how you do it, how many rounds you do, and please only do rounds that really make sense. Many rounds are nothing else than, oh, that person wanted to talk with you as well, and that person wanted to talk with you as well, and the next person wants to talk with you as well. It's not occupational therapy what we do here. Assessment center must be focused on the goal, and there we are again, German efficiency. That has nothing to do with the cultural gap, simply focused on the outcome. Of course, you have other events, information events, for example, where you strengthen the employer brand. Of course, you have to attract talent, retain talent, and of course, hold talent within your organization because you don't want to attract someone, then develop them, and then make them leave. And by the way, in most cases, and I said that before, people leave people. People do not leave organizations. When someone leaves, it means you have done something wrong. And of course, you have all the talks when someone applies, and you have interviews. That's, of course, also part of the HR director's job. Then, of course, you have training and qualification. You need someone who's able to proactively see what kind of soft skills and qualifications are needed. They must offer perspective for employees because otherwise people leave. And they must be reasonably knowledgeable about the education market in the market and world you're living and working in. Of course, many important decisions have to be implemented throughout HR. motivation of staff is a major part of HR work. They need to know what kind of trends do we have, economical trends, technological trends, social trends as well, especially in the soft skill part that is quite challenging. They often have to do different talks and negotiations between the leadership team, different employees, sometimes even with or without unions, but often unions are a part of this job. Then, of course, you have the whole administrative part, doing everything when it comes to payment. And of course, you need some sort of salary strategy. Many companies do not have any kind of salary strategy. They just go by free negotiation. Free negotiation when it comes to salary, of course, is one option which you could do. The main disadvantage of it is that you always have let's say, very low trust between people, because especially when you say don't talk about your salary in this country, in this company, people are allowed to talk about their salary with whoever they want. If you tell them or not, it's not your job to determine if they are allowed to talk about that. And especially when you tell people don't talk about your salary, people know that something went wrong in the first place. So have a strategy about the salaries. You need, of course, administration with all the contracts, then the personal files, of course, where everything is filed. And of course, data protection laws here are in place, because having a digital file of every employee raises questions: who has access to that? And of course, you have to answer these questions, especially today. And when you have these personal files, personal records, then you need to be sure that you comply with the law. So when you've done all that, you think, well, that must be it, right? No, still a lot to do. Of course, a good HR director also cares about inclusion and diversity. And now people say, oh, you mean like you mean like rainbow flag and stuff. Yeah, that's exactly where the problem is. Inclusion and diversity is more than putting a rainbow flag up when it's Pride Month in June. Because let's face it, many put the Pride flag up because they want the money, but still, that's not inclusion and diversity. It has a lot more different aspects of it. Besides that, when you go beyond inclusion and diversity, an HR director has to know all the different laws which are constantly changing, and not only know them, but also apply them in your organization. International communication, especially when you have different countries you serve, is also part of it. So you may need someone who's able to speak more than one language. Besides all that, what I mentioned already, you need someone who's able to economically understand the needs of your organization, psychologically understand the needs of your organization, and legally understand the needs of your organization. And by the way, now you think, what is the right approach here? There are different approaches. You could, of course, say, we want someone who has a master's degree or even higher education in economics, psychology, and maybe an LLM. Of course, you can ask for someone like that when you are willing to pay them, with the next problem that often these people have very little practical experience. So need to be sure that you find a good middle way between having the proper knowledge and the proper practice orientation, real world experience. Besides all that, we still have more points to go. You need strategic thinking, conceptual thinking. They must have expertise when it comes to calculations, of course, often being able to use different tools to give proper reports to senior management or the board of directors. And besides all that, you need someone who is very strong in leadership. And I don't mean leadership like this bland word you often use in the English-speaking world. Oh, someone is a great leader. And that often only means we hired them, so they are great. Please accept that. Leadership is something which is not given to someone formally, but informally. That changed dramatically during recent years. And especially when you have someone who is on the wrong side of the leadership game, they should not be HR director, because leadership in HR often means you must have a high amount of social competency. You must be very strong on content, but very low on the ego side of the game. Because let's face it, when the big awards are given away and they clap for the people who, in their opinion, have done all the job, normally the HR department doesn't get the applause they deserve. And I don't see this changing in the recent future. It might take years until people realize what the value of good HR work is. Very important here is when you now hire someone, with all the different aspects I just told you, I still, and these are recent examples, I'll just give you an example, City of London, company highly profitable, even in times of crisis, and then they said, oh, we're looking for an HR director, naming all these different aspects, and then they said, oh, we have a candidate, but that candidate is really difficult. They want to have like 110,000 British pound. So I asked them, what do you think people should earn when they do all this work? Oh, we thought about 75,000. So look, here's the main point. When you expect someone to do great work of great value and then don't pay them properly, you will only find people who either use your position only for their CV and leave at the earliest point possible, or they will simply show up and fail at their job. It is very important that proper work and a high expectation of quality comes along with good payment. Otherwise, the only thing you communicate externally is, oh, we're such a great company. What do you mean with you want to have money as well? It is not an honor to work for you. Please get off that throne. Don't tell people it's an honor to work for you. When you expect them to do excellent work, excellent payment comes with it. That is the most normal aspect of contract negotiation. And when you expect someone to work for a reasonably low amount of money, that will lead to a reasonably low amount of quality when it comes to the result of their work. And when I asked people, where does this number come from, 75, 85,000, the negotiation went a bit back and forth. And then someone said, look, it will definitely not happen that someone in HR makes more money than I do in sales. And there is the main reason. It is nothing else than envy. Because envy is what drives people to keep other people's salary low. And you cannot compare. When you are with a company for 25 years, you grew internally, you always stayed within the company, you're now there for 25 years. Of course you are of great value, but external people are more expensive, and that is not even new. Of course, you have other advantages. People who come from an external place, they often have more innovation. They see things that go wrong, which you probably haven't seen because you're only working your everyday job, and sometimes you just don't see where things go wrong. It is really important to see that you can, of course, grow your own, which is cheaper on the salary side, but takes a way longer time. So when you have the time, feel free to grow your own. Most likely takes years and must be accompanied by training, qualification, coaching, etc., which also comes with a price tag. Of course, you could say, we need someone right now, so we take someone from an external place. That, of course, comes with a higher price tag. Please do not deny reality. Because otherwise, if you deny reality and you still tell people it's an honor to work for us, it's a great place to grow, blah, 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 they know all this stuff. People who do great work, people who deliver great results have a great range of opportunities. And these opportunities, you might only be one of their opportunities. So don't misbehave and lose out to get a great candidate in the seat in your organization only because of internal envy when it comes to payment. I wish you all the best when you implement this in your organization. Happy to talk if you want to. And for today, thank you very much for your time.